Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. Okay, so for today's video, I have a list in my little notebook. I have a list of 10 authors, 10 romance authors that I very specifically want to get to in 2023. A lot of these authors, pretty much all of these authors, all of these authors have been on my radar for a really long time. I have bought a lot of their books. I have them either physically, ebook, audiobook. For whatever reason, I say this quite a lot when I'm talking about popular books or something that I really want to read. I sort of get a little bit apprehensive and worried about, I've put all of my hopes on really enjoying this, and I'm worried that it won't pan out, and so I put it off and put it off and put it off. And I don't want to do that anymore. So these are priority authors for me in this year, and it's mostly... Truthfully, a lot of these are historical romance authors, but that also goes along with my goal this year for reading and finding more new-to-me historical romance authors that I really vibe with, so I'm taking that assignment seriously, and we're going to do this. So we're going to go ahead and get started. The first author that is on here is one that I am pretty sure I'm going to love. I think that I'm going to love this author's writing. I think that there's a really good chance that I will enjoy these books. I don't know that they're going to be all-time favorites, but I think I will. And this is Mila, I believe I'm saying that right, or Mila, I'm not sure. Mila Finelli. She writes the Mafia Mistress books series. I believe there are 3 out at this time, and I've had her books for a long time. I own the ebooks and the audiobooks, and it is time to make this happen. I feel like I just have a feeling I'm going to love this author, so definitely prioritizing her. There have been so many times in the last 6 months or so where I have went and downloaded the audiobook and then I just don't start it for some reason. I'm annoying that way, so I definitely want to read her. Another author that I've been a bit hesitant about because I feel like the types of books specifically in this series just may not be for me based on what they are about, but there is that part of me that is just mostly curious to see how this author blends such an erotic topic and story with emotion, because I have heard a lot of people talk about these books that they are very emotional, and so that intrigues me a lot. And it's Sarah Kate. I'm going to start with praise. I own the audio. I picked it up in an Audible sale not too long ago, and I know everybody has their favorites in the series. This is a series that I have kind of stayed away from because I feel like in general, it's just something that I'm not looking for. I'm not looking for books about sex clubs or things like that. I typically don't seek out highly erotic books. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that's not typically what leads me to believe that this romance is emotional. But it's not to say it can't be done in a way that works for me. So I really want to try her, and that's the book I'm going to start with. Okay, so now the next 2 books are books that I have picked specifically because of how I've heard Chels on TikTok and Beth on TikTok talk about these books. So Chels and Beth are they're probably my top, they're in my top 3 or 4 TikTok accounts that I watch who give incredibly thoughtful and insightful discussions on the books that they're reading, specifically about historical romance, older historical romance. But something that very much intrigues me about the way Chels talks about books is that they are always sort of drawing this comparison about the moral question of reading dark romance and the content that is often found in bodice rippers. Why are we so quick to assume moral judgment on these books, the bodice rippers, that were written, early on in historical romance days, probably in the 70s-ish is what I'm assuming. I don't know exactly the date when this was, actually I believe this book was published in the 90s, so it was still technically a bodice ripper. Could be in the 80s. The 80s were still a strong time for the bodice rippers. But anyway, my point is, the thing that really, really makes me curious about this book specifically, is To Have and to Hold, which is one of Chels's favorite historical romances of all time. I do have a paperback copy of this, which is kind of one of my pride and joys because it is very vintage and old and I love it so much. But the thing that Chels said about this book is that this is a bodice ripper, but it is also feminist. And they said that it typically is not a comparison that you draw with a bodice ripper because one of the main themes in a bodice ripper is violence against women and the abuser having a happily ever after and the woman finding love typically with their abuser. And that's such a complicated topic, and I truly feel like a lot of the times it was very well done in some of the older historical romances, and so that's something I really want to look into and examine in this year. I'm just very intrigued with that concept, and I want to see what my opinion is of that and how that parallels the dark romances that are being written today. I just find that fascinating. So, To Have and to Hold, Chels said this is progressive, messy, uncomfortable. I am here for that, honestly. That sounds very, very, very intriguing. So, this next book is also a recommendation from Chels. I believe this was in their book club that is in Discord. I am pretty much never active on Discord, even though I have it. So this book is Black Silk by Judith Ivory, who also went by Judy Cuevas. This author was one of the most famous historical romance authors who wrote very complicated antagonists, it would be the hero, but they were essentially the antagonist. And the thing that I'm most intrigued by with this book is the way that the author creates empathy for the antagonist, for the abuser, for the hero. I really, really, really want to take a look at this and see how that's done and how that makes me feel as a reader. I'm just super intrigued with this concept. Can you tell? Those two are some that I am extremely excited about. I haven't been able to find a vintage edition of Black Silk. I do have the new trade paperback. I think it's arriving today, which I'm excited about, and I can't wait to read that. Neither of those are on audio, so those are going to be physical reading projects for me. Okay, so now this next author is a duo, a husband and wife duo, and I actually have read this author before, but I've only read the first book in their Innkeeper Chronicles, which I really enjoyed, but I really want to experience this author's work at what is their best. So I'm putting this author on here because I've been meaning to get to Burn For You or the Kate Daniels series for so long, ever since Jesson told me about it. Jesson is the one who really convinced me to try Burn For You. And I have started the audiobook before, but I feel like it's a case of wrong time. I had a hard time getting into it. That happens to me sometimes with audiobooks, and then I have to go back and read the book physically. So that's what I'm going to do with Burn For You. I'm going to read it physically first and then see if I can transition to the audiobook. That's also something that is helpful for me when I'm reading like fantasies. It's sometimes difficult for me to jump right in with an audiobook in a fantasy. I need to sort of see the words in my book first and then I can read the audiobook. So that's a book series, that's an author that I'm really excited to explore. Something I definitely want to do more in 2023 is like deep dive into authors and really take a look at the scope of their work and sort of break it down. I find a lot of enjoyment in doing that, and Ilona Andrews is definitely an author that I want to do that with. Okay, so now we're running into some of the historical romance authors that I want to try that are either indie. Most of these are actually indie, not all of them. Most of them are indie that I want to try. This one isn't indie. The first one is Grace Burrows. I want to read The Heir. I have both the ebook and the paperback of this book. I think that Jen from the Book Refuge really loves this. I'm pretty sure that she's the one who recommended this to me. I think this actually may be on an old 5-star prediction video that I did, that I never finished. I need to go back and see if I read those books. I know I didn't read that one. But this is Grace Burrows' most highly rated book, or most rated book. It has like 7,000 ratings, which is quite high for a historical romance author that, isn't Lisa Kleypas. So the only thing I really know about this is it sounds like it's a housekeeper, I think Duke. I'm not entirely sure what his title is, but he is a member of the peerage, so it's that type of romance, which, honestly, I think that could be really, really great. It obviously has a nice setup for a lot of, like, taboo, they can't be together, forbidden, but I'm most curious about the power imbalance. Is there going to be a power imbalance? What's that dynamic going to be like? Is it going to feel equal, even though he is clearly so much above her? I just find that fascinating and interesting, and those are some type of concepts that really get me engaged in a story, more so than just the taboo, forbidden nature of it. Another author that I really want to try is Scarlett Scott. This is another author that's been on my radar for freaking ever. I have her ebook. This is the first in this, no, not the ebook. I have a lot of her ebooks. I have this audiobook, which I bought, Duke of Depravity, which is the first in a series, and I know that Rachel from Rachel Reads and Sings really loves Scarlett Scott, so I'm very excited about reading her, trying her out. Hopefully she works well for me. I truthfully don't know a lot about her writing. I just know that she's probably one of the more popular indie historical romance authors. Now this next author is on here specifically for this book. So a lot of these authors are on here because I just want to look at their work, not necessarily just a single book, even though I mentioned a single book, but this book author is on here for this specific book. So this is Jesse Cleaver. This is another indie historical romance author, and the book is The Duke and the Wallflower. So the reason this appeals to me very, very much is that the heroine is traditionally unattractive, and she believes she's never going to marry, and she's sort of feeling bad about that. And her sister comes into town to make an arranged marriage, and the Duke is the one who gets her the Duke and the Wallflower. So I'm really, honestly, so intrigued. I love, love, love unconventional type of setups and pairings like this. And it all comes down to, how is the author going to show me that this romance works? And is it going to lean too far into, you know, some romances I've read where that has this type of setup where she's unattractive and he is really handsome. Like, it doesn't go too far into him being very aware of how unattractive she is, and him being like, oh, I can't believe that I have feelings for her because she's so unattractive. Like, I'm talking about a very specific book. Leave it in the comments if you know which one I'm talking about. Anyway, I'm intrigued to see how this book will pan out. Okay, this next author is another indie historical romance author who is known for writing steamy and sexy romances. And honestly, that's not going to sell me on a book. I'm just not that type of reader. I definitely enjoy intimate scenes, but that's not the thing typically that sells me on a book. But the thing that did sell me on these is the beautiful covers. I cannot lie, I am a sucker for a beautiful cover, but that only increases my disappointment if the book doesn't end up working for me. So fingers crossed, this one works for me. This sounds like it has a very intriguing setup in the beginning where I'm assuming the Earl offers the heroine to, you know, will you play the piano for me in only your underclothes? So, I mean, the setup for a lot of spices there. Is it going to deliver on anything else? I sure hope so. I sure hope so. Okay, the last author that I want to try is another one who I've heard about for so long. I've heard rave reviews about. She is a very established author. She's got a lot of books out, and I just don't even know why I haven't read her yet. Other than I feel like what I hear about her is that the heat is very high. And that's always a concern for me because I need that to be a good balance, not to just continuously drill on this point, but I feel like I constantly have to try and clarify, like, I'm not opposed to heat, I'm not opposed to high heat, but the balance for me has to be where I believe this is love and not just lust and physical attraction. And a lot of times for me, that's off when it's just physical, and I feel like a lot of times people confuse that for love, and let me just tell you, that ain't it. That is not it one bit. Okay, so the book I'm going to be reading is Behind the Scenes. I recently picked this up in an Audible sale. Yes, I know all of the drama surrounding Audible lately. We're not going to talk about that right now because I already bought these books and we're going to use them. But I believe that Caitlin really enjoyed this book. So I have high expectations and I'm excited about it. So yeah, I'm very excited to try these authors. I think I've got some good ones on here. I know for sure these will at least be very interesting reading experiences, and honestly, I can't ask for more than that. That is what I want when I'm picking up a book. I'm not necessarily looking for every time I pick up a book to be the swooniest romance I've ever read. I mean, I love that, but I'm really looking for something that's going to be an interesting reading experience that's going to sort of show me a different side of how people make decisions in relationships and how they work and how they don't work. And yes, I know it's fiction, but I still just find that fascinating. And anyway, okay, that was a lot of talking for this video. I hope y'all enjoyed it. If you made it this far, please feel free to leave me a snowflake. As I am sitting in my truck waiting to go into the gym, my pre-workout is propping up my phone, and it's snowing. So I hope y'all had a good day. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in my next video.